The call came while I was reviewing quarterly reports in my office. My assistant Miranda's voice trembled when she patched it through. Larkin, it's the police department. They say it's urgent. My name is Larkin, and that call shattered my carefully structured world into a million jagged pieces. Miss Delaney? The officer's voice was gentle but firm. I'm sorry to inform you that your father, Robert Delaney, was involved in a serious accident this morning on Route 27. The pen I'd been holding clattered to my desk. Is he? I couldn't finish the sentence. I'm very sorry. He didn't survive the impact. The world tilted sideways. My father, the man who taught me to ride a bike, who showed me how to read financial statements when I was 12, who still called me princess, even though I was 32, was gone. Just like that. I don't remember ending the call or walking out of my office. The next thing I knew, my husband Nolan was rushing through the lobby of Delaney Industries, his usually perfectly styled hair slightly disheveled. He wrapped his arms around me, and I buried my face in his shoulder, inhaling the familiar scent of his cologne. I left as soon as Miranda called, he whispered. What do you need? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. It was my father's attorney, Marcus. Larkin, I just heard. I know this is terrible timing, but there are some immediate matters we need to discuss regarding the company. I pulled away from Nolan, wiping my eyes. Now. The board is already calling. Your father was, well, he was the heart of this company. People are scared. Nolan squeezed my hand. You don't have to do this right now. But I did. Dad had built this company from nothing, pouring 30 years of his life into it. I couldn't let it falter, not even for a day of grief. I'll be there in 20 minutes, I told Marcus. Nolan's face darkened slightly. Let me come with you. You shouldn't be alone. I hesitated. Nolan had always been supportive of my career, but lately, I'd noticed a tension whenever the company came up. Maybe it was the stark contrast between his teacher's salary and my executive position. Or maybe it was his mother Vera's constant hints about family businesses belonging to the whole family. I think I need to handle this part alone, I said gently. He stepped back, jaw tightening. Of course. I'll go tell Mom and Sage the news. They'll want to help with arrangements. The way he said it made my skin prickle. My father had never quite warmed to Vera and Sage, though he'd been unfailingly polite. Something about them made him uneasy, though he never said why. In Marcus's office, surrounded by leather-bound law books and the faint smell of coffee, I learned that Dad had left me controlling interest in the company. The news shouldn't have surprised me. I'd been working alongside him for years, learning every aspect of the business. But somehow, it felt overwhelming. There's something else, Marcus said, sliding an envelope across his desk. Your father left this for you. He updated his will last month and insisted this be given to you after. I stared at the envelope, my name written in Dad's familiar scrawl. I couldn't bring myself to open it yet. My phone buzzed again, Nolan letting me know his family was gathering at our house. Mom's making calls, his text read. She says we need to discuss the future. The future. Such a simple word for such a complicated mess. I tucked the letter into my bag, thanked Marcus, and headed home. But as I drove, I couldn't shake the feeling that my father's death wasn't just an ending. It was the beginning of something I wasn't prepared for. I just didn't know yet how right I was. 3 days after Dad's funeral, I hosted a family dinner. It wasn't my idea. Vera insisted we needed to come together as family during this difficult time. I was still numb, moving through the motions of grief while trying to keep the company stable, but I couldn't refuse without seeming ungrateful. The tension started before the first course was even served. I was in the kitchen, plating the appetizers, when I overheard Vera's voice drift in from the dining room. It's such a shame Robert didn't have a son, she was saying. A family business needs a strong male presence. Not that Larkin isn't capable, of course, but… Mom. Nolan cut in, but his protest sounded weak. I gripped the counter, knuckles white. My best friend Marin, who'd come early to help, squeezed my shoulder. Don't let her get to you, she whispered. That's exactly what she wants. I forced a smile and carried the plates out. Sage, Nolan's sister, was sprawled in my father's chair, his favorite spot at the head of the table. She didn't move when I entered. Something smells amazing, Sage chirped, scrolling through her phone. Though I hope it's not too heavy. I'm trying this new diet. You could move, I suggested quietly, nodding at Dad's chair. Sage blinked up at me, all innocence. Oh, is this spot special? It was Dad's chair, Nolan explained, finally speaking up. Maybe you could. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Sage jumped up, but her expression didn't match her words. I'm just so comfortable here. It feels right, doesn't it? Like family? The room went quiet. I set down the plates with careful precision, fighting to keep my composure. Vera cleared her throat. Speaking of family, she began, Nolan and I were discussing the company earlier. You know, he has excellent management experience from running the science department at his school. It's not quite the same thing, I said carefully. But family is family, Vera pressed. And now that you're in charge, surely you'll want trusted people around you? People who share your values. I caught Nolan's eye across the table. He looked away. The company has a strong management team, I replied. Dad built it carefully over decades. Yes, but times change. Vera smiled, all teeth. Fresh blood, new perspectives. And Sage has her business degree. From an online college, Marin muttered under her breath. Sage shot her a glare. I heard that. Ladies, Nolan interrupted. Maybe we could talk about something else? Larkin's still grieving. Of course, Vera patted my hand. We just want to help, dear. Your father would have wanted the company to benefit the whole family. I pulled my hand away, standing abruptly. I need to check on the main course. In the kitchen, I braced myself against the sink, breathing deeply. Marin followed me in. They're vultures, she said flatly. You see that, right? They're my family now, I replied, but the words felt hollow. No, they're Nolan's family. And where was he when Vera was basically calling you incompetent? Or when Sage was deliberately provoking you? I didn't answer. Through the kitchen door, I could hear Vera's voice again, lower now. She's overwhelmed, poor thing. She'll need guidance. Strong guidance. Mom, please, Nolan's voice, still weak, still unwilling to take a real stand. I reached into my pocket, touching Dad's unopened letter. I hadn't been able to read it yet, it felt too final. But standing there, listening to them plot and plan in my own home, I realized I couldn't put it off much longer. The main course is going to burn, I said finally. Screw the main course, Marin replied. What are you going to do about them? I straightened my shoulders, remembering how Dad used to say that respect had to be earned, not demanded. First, we're going to serve dinner. Then tomorrow, I'm going to show them exactly what kind of leader I can be. But as I carried out the main course, I caught Nolan watching me with an expression I'd never seen before, something between worry and calculation. And I wondered if I really knew my husband at all. The email from James Chun, one of our longest-serving board members, hit me like a punch to the gut. I read it 3 times in my office, each time hoping the words would somehow rearrange themselves into something less devastating. Larkin, I feel obligated to inform you about a concerning conversation with Vera Price. She suggested that without proper family oversight of the company's operations, she might need to pursue legal options regarding your father's estate. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through the rest of the message. James had attached screenshots of emails, dozens of them. Vera had been reaching out to board members for weeks, even before Dad's funeral, pushing for positions for both Nolan and Sage. My phone buzzed. Marin, have you checked your email? You knew about this? I just heard from Rita in HR. Vera's been calling department heads too, asking about potential restructuring. She's building a case that you're too inexperienced to run things alone. I closed my eyes, remembering the dinner 2 nights ago. All those subtle hints and careful comments, they weren't just idle talk. They were laying groundwork. Where's Nolan? Marin asked. Parent-teacher conferences. I checked the time. He should be home soon. Don't confront him alone. I can come over. I need to handle this myself. I heard his key in the door just after 7. He looked tired, his tie loosened, carrying a stack of papers. For a moment, I almost wavered. This was my husband, the man who'd held me through Mom's death, who brought me coffee every morning, Your mother's been contacting the board, I said without preamble. He set down his papers slowly. Larkin. Did you know? His hesitation was answer enough. She's trying to help, he said finally. We all are. You're under so much pressure. By threatening legal action? By undermining me to my own board. That's not. She wouldn't actually sue. She's just worried about the family's future. Our future. I pulled out my phone, pulled up the emails. Read them. He did, his face growing paler. This is just mom being mom. You know how she gets. No. This is your mother trying to force her way into my father's company. And you knew. You've known all along. What was I supposed to do? His voice cracked. She's my mother. And she's right, I should be doing more. I'm your husband, but I'm just a teacher while you're running this huge company. So this is about your ego? This is about family. He slammed his hand on the counter, making me jump. Your father's gone, Larkin. The company needs strong leadership. And you think that's you? Or Sage, with her online degree and 0 work experience. At least we're thinking about the whole family's needs. You're so caught up in your father's legacy. Because it matters. I was shouting now too. Because he built something real, something that matters to hundreds of employees and their families. And your mother wants to treat it like a personal ATM. That's not fair. Then explain it to me, Nolan. Explain why your mother is threatening legal action against her daughter-in-law less than 2 weeks after my father died. He couldn't meet my eyes. She's just trying to secure our future. In that moment, something shifted between us. Maybe it was the way he said, our, like he and his family were one unit, and I was something else entirely. I need you to leave, I said quietly. What? Pack a bag. Go to your mother's. I need time to think. Larkin, don't do this. Either you leave now, or I call Marin and have her come help me pack my things instead. He stared at me for a long moment, then turned and walked upstairs without another word. I listened to him moving around, packing, fighting the urge to run up and tell him to stay, to fix this. But Dad's voice echoed in my head, trust your gut, princess. When something feels wrong in business or in life, it usually is. I pulled out his letter, still unopened. Whatever guidance he'd left me, whatever wisdom he'd wanted to share, I was ready to hear it now. Because this wasn't just about the company anymore. This was war. After Nolan left, I finally opened Dad's letter. My hands trembled as I unfolded the paper, his familiar handwriting swimming before my eyes. My dearest Larkin, if you're reading this, I need you to check something for me. In the office safe, behind the Delaney Industries Incorporation papers, there's a blue folder. I was in my car before finishing the letter. The office was dark and empty when I arrived, but I knew every inch of this building. Dad's office still smelled like his aftershave. The safe clicked open. Behind the incorporation papers, just as he'd said, was a worn blue folder. Inside were photographs, bank statements, and a private investigator's report dated 3 months ago. My phone rang, making me jump. Marin, where are you? I went by your house, but... Dad knew. I cut her off, my voice hollow. He knew something was wrong. He hired someone to investigate the prices. Silence on the line. Then, what did he find? I spread the papers across Dad's desk. Vera's broke. She remortgaged her house twice. Sage has maxed out credit cards in 3 different names. And Nolan. My throat tightened. Nolan's been meeting with corporate lawyers since last year. What kind of lawyers? The kind that specialize in shareholder disputes and inheritance claims. The office door creaked. I spun around to find James Chin standing there, looking grave. I thought I might find you here, he said quietly. There's something else you need to know. I put the phone on speaker as James sat down. He looked older than he had at the board meeting last week. Your father came to me about his suspicions, James began. He was planning to update the company bylaws, add provisions to protect against hostile takeovers from within the family. But he didn't get the chance, I whispered. The accident. Marin's voice crackled through the speaker. Larkin, you don't think. The police report's in here too, I said, holding up a paper with shaking hands. Dad's brake lines were damaged. They ruled it inconclusive. But James leaned forward. The day before the accident, your father told me he was going to confront Nolan directly. He said he had proof that the prices were planning something. My world tilted sideways. The photographs scattered across the desk seemed to mock me. Nolan leaving law offices, Vera meeting with board members in secret. Sage's shopping sprees with money she didn't have. I should have seen it, I said. All those times Vera pushed for family unity when Nolan insisted on joining board meetings. You saw what they wanted you to see, Marin said firmly. What matters is what you do now. My phone buzzed with a text. Nolan, Mom wants to meet tomorrow. To talk things through as a family. Please, Larkin, give us a chance to explain. I stared at the message, remembering all the little moments, how Nolan always seemed to know about board decisions before I told him. How Vera had started calling my father's old friends months ago, how Sage had casually mentioned moving closer to the office. They're planning something, I said. This meeting tomorrow, it's a trap. Then set one of your own, Marin replied. James nodded slowly. Your father left you everything for a reason, Larkin. He trusted you to protect his legacy. I looked around the office. At Dad's degrees on the wall, the photo of him teaching me to ride a bike, the empire he'd built from nothing. Then I looked down at the evidence he'd gathered, his final gift to me. Tell Nolan I'll meet them, I said, already formulating a plan. But not tomorrow. I need time to prepare. Prepare what? Marin asked. I gathered the papers, tucking them safely away. Dad taught me that in business, like in chess, you have to think 3 moves ahead. They want to play games? Fine. But they're about to learn they're not the only ones who can set a trap. As I locked the office door, I swore I could smell Dad's aftershave again, stronger this time. Like he was right there with me, watching, waiting to see what I would do next. I chose the conference room overlooking the city for our meeting. Dad always said the view reminded him of how far we'd come, from a tiny startup to the gleaming skyscraper we now occupied. It seemed fitting for what I was about to do. Vera arrived first, perfectly coiffed, and wearing what looked like a new designer suit. Sage trailed behind her, scrolling through her phone. Nolan came last, his tie slightly crooked, a detail I would have fixed just days ago. Darling, Vera started, reaching for my hands. We're so glad you're ready to talk. I stepped back. Please sit down. James Chun and our corporate counsel, Sarah Martinez, entered silently, taking seats at the far end of the table. Vera's smile flickered. I wasn't aware this was a formal meeting, she said carefully. Neither was I, Nolan added, frowning at the lawyers. I opened the blue folder in front of me. Let's talk about Dad's accident. The room went still. Sage finally looked up from her phone. The brake lines were damaged. I continued, my voice steady despite my racing heart. Interesting timing, considering he was planning to change the company bylaws the next day. What are you implying? Vera's voice had lost its warmth. I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. I spread out the bank statements, the photographs, the investigators' reports. Like the fact that you're nearly bankrupt. Or that Nolan's been meeting with corporate lawyers specializing in hostile takeovers. Those meetings were about school funding, Nolan protested, but his face had gone pale. Really? Because I have recordings. I pressed play on my phone, and Nolan's voice filled the room. Once we secure board positions, we can start restructuring. My wife won't see it coming. Sage stood abruptly. This is ridiculous. You can't. Sit down. Vera snapped, her mask finally cracking. Larkin, dear, you're obviously struggling with grief. Seeing conspiracies where there's only family trying to help. Help yourselves, you mean? I pulled out more documents. Dad knew what you were planning. He was gathering evidence. And then, conveniently, he had an accident. You think we killed him? Nolan's voice cracked. Your own husband? I think you're capable of anything to get what you want. I turned to Sarah. Please explain their options. Sarah cleared her throat. Option 1. You sign these papers, agreeing to sever all ties with Delaney Industries. You'll receive a one-time settlement in exchange for waiving any future claims on the company or estate. Or, Vera's eyes had gone cold. Or we turn over all evidence of your financial fraud, corporate espionage, and the ongoing investigation into Robert Delaney's death to the authorities. You wouldn't dare, Sage whispered. We're family. Family? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Family doesn't plot behind each other's backs. Family doesn't try to steal what others have built. And family certainly doesn't celebrate at a funeral. What are you talking about? Nolan asked. I pulled out one final photograph. Vera, Sage, and Nolan toasting with champagne in Vera's kitchen the night after Dad's funeral. Their smiles said everything. "You have until tomorrow morning to decide," I said, standing. "Choose carefully. You'll regret this," Vera hissed, her composure completely gone. "You have no idea what we're capable of." "Actually, I do." I walked to the door, then turned back. "Oh, and Nolan? I've already filed for divorce. Consider yourself served." I walked out, leaving them with the lawyers and their choices. In the elevator, my hands finally started shaking. Marin was waiting in my office. "How did it go?" I looked out at the city Dad had loved so much. He always said the hardest part of business wasn't making money, it was knowing who to trust. And now I know exactly who to trust. I touched the window, remembering Dad's words about legacy and integrity, and who to destroy. The sun was setting over the city, painting the sky in shades of red. It felt like an ending and a beginning all at once. Tomorrow would bring either their surrender or war. I was ready for either. The deadline came and went. No signatures. No surrender. Just silence, until my phone lit up with a message from an unknown number. Turn on the news. Channel 7 was running a special report about Delaney Industries. The headline made my blood run cold. Family fortune or family fraud? Questions arise about Robert Delaney's death. Vera's face filled the screen, tears streaming down her perfectly made-up face. "We're devastated by these revelations," she sobbed. "To think that Robert's own daughter might have." The break lines. My phone exploded with notifications. Board members, employees, reporters, all wanting answers. Marin burst into my office. "They're saying you tampered with your father's car," she gasped. "That you couldn't wait to take control of the company." I couldn't breathe. On my desk, more headlines flashed across my laptop. Sources claim Larkin Delaney expressed frustration with father's leadership. Financial records show unusual transfers days before CEO's death. "They planted evidence," I whispered. "They're using everything I threatened them with, but twisting it around." My office door opened again. James' chin looked grim. "The board's calling an emergency meeting. They're voting on temporary suspension of leadership." "They can't do that. I have controlling interests. They're citing the emergency clause. Pending investigation into." He couldn't finish. My phone buzzed. "Nolan, it didn't have to be this way. We can still fix this. Meet me at home. Just us." "Don't," Marin warned, reading over my shoulder. But I was already grabbing my keys. I had to know why, had to understand how the man I'd loved could do this. The drive home felt endless. Nolan was waiting in our kitchen. Our perfect kitchen where we'd hosted dinner parties and Sunday brunches, where he'd proposed on one knee 5 years ago. "You really think I kill my own father?" My voice cracked. "Of course not." He stepped closer. "But Mom, she's desperate. The money problems, Sage's debts. She saw an opportunity. And you just went along with it?" "I tried to be the bridge between our families. But you never saw me, Larkin. I was just the teacher, the trophy husband who couldn't measure up to the great Robert Delaney's daughter. So you decided to destroy me instead? We can still fix this." He reached for my hand. "Sign over 40% of the company. Mom will retract her statement. We'll say it was all a misunderstanding, grief making everyone crazy. We can even stay married, keep up appearances." I jerked away. "You really think I'd choose you over Dad's legacy?" "Choose carefully," he said softly. "Because if you don't, tomorrow's headline will be about how you're following in your mother's footsteps. How depression runs in families. How tragic it is when history repeats." The threat hit like a physical blow. Mom's suicide had been private, protected. Until now. You wouldn't. Mom would. And does it matter? Once it's out there, the damage is done. The board won't risk a mentally unstable CEO. Sign the papers, Larkin. It's over. My phone buzzed again, James, probably with news of the board's vote. I let it ring. "I'll have the papers drawn up," Nolan continued. "We can sign tomorrow. Start fresh." I looked around our kitchen, remembering all the lies that had been served here along with family dinners. Remembering Dad's words about trust and legacy. "Tomorrow," I echoed, already planning my next move. He smiled, thinking he'd won. "I'll tell Mom. She'll be relieved." I walked out without looking back, drove until I reached Dad's favorite spot, overlooking the city. The same view as my office, but somehow clearer now. My phone showed 57 missed calls. The news was still running Vera's tearful interview. Tomorrow, they'd drag Mom's memory through the mud. Unless I pulled out Dad's letter again, reading past the part about the blue folder to something I'd missed before. Remember, Princess? Sometimes you have to lose everything to see what really matters. I finally understood what he meant, and I knew exactly what I had to do next. I arrived at the office before dawn, Dad's final instructions clear in my mind. By 8, every major financial network was carrying the story. Delaney Industries CEO calls emergency press conference. Vera and Nolan burst into my office just as I finished preparing. "What are you doing?" Nolan demanded. Exactly what Dad taught me to do. I straightened my jacket. "I'm telling the truth." The press conference room was packed. Cameras flashed as I took the podium, Vera and Nolan hovering at the back like vultures waiting for a kill. My father, Robert Delaney, built this company on 2 principles: integrity and transparency. My voice carried clear and strong. Today, I'm honoring both. I nodded to James, who started the video. On the massive screen behind me, security footage began to play. Footage from Dad's private office camera system that he'd never told anyone about, except in his letter to me. The room went silent as they watched Vera and Nolan in Dad's office the night before his death, arguing with him about the company's future. "You can't cut us out." Vera's voice rang through the speakers. "After everything we've done to position ourselves. I won't let you steal my daughter's birthright." Dad's voice, strong and clear. "I know about the debts, Vera. The schemes. It ends now." Nolan's face on the screen was twisted with rage. "You think you can just throw us away? We're family." "No," Dad replied. "You're parasites." The footage cut to later that night, Nolan in the parking garage under Dad's car. The timestamp clearly visible. Gasps filled the room. Reporters were frantically typing on their phones. At the back, Vera's face had gone chalk white. "The police have already received this footage," I continued, "along with evidence of extensive financial fraud, corporate espionage, and conspiracy." "You're destroying your own marriage," Nolan shouted from the back. "Everything we built." "We built nothing." I cut him off. "You plotted and schemed while I actually worked. The only thing you built was a web of lies." "Larkin, please." Vera stepped forward, tears already starting. "Think about what you're doing to our family." "Family?" I laughed, and the sound echoed through the silent room. "Let me show you what family really means." The screen changed again, this time showing years of secret recordings. Vera and Sage spending company money on luxury purchases. Nolan meeting with corporate raiders. The champagne toast after Dad's funeral. "My father knew what you were planning," I said, my voice steady despite the rage burning in my chest. "He left me everything I needed to expose you. But first he wanted me to see who you really were." "You'll regret this," Nolan snarled, starting forward. Security stepped between us. In the crowd, I could see police officers moving in. "No, Nolan. You'll regret it. You and your family wanted my company." I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. "Congratulations. You're about to become majority shareholders of your own prison sentences." The officers reached them as reporters shouted questions. Vera was crying for real now as handcuffs clicked into place. Sage, who'd just arrived, screamed as she was detained. Nolan locked eyes with me one last time as they led him away. "I did love you, you know." "No," I replied quietly. "You loved what I could give you. There's a difference." After they were gone, I addressed the press again. Delaney Industries will continue operating with full transparency. Our books are open, our practices ethical, and our commitment to integrity absolute, just as my father wanted. Hours later, after the statements and questions and legal proceedings, I sat alone in Dad's office. The sun was setting over the city he'd loved so much. "You were right, Dad," I whispered to the empty room. "Sometimes you have to lose everything to see what really matters." My phone buzzed, Marin, sending me headlines from the evening news. Delaney Industries stand strong. Corporate conspiracy exposed and justice served. CEO honors father's legacy. I smiled, touching Dad's nameplate on the desk. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for now I had done what needed to be done. I had protected his legacy, not just the company, but the principles he lived by. And in doing so, I'd found my own. 1 year later, I stood in the same conference room where I'd exposed Nolan and his family, but everything felt different. The morning sun streamed through the windows, illuminating the faces of our employees as I announced the company's new profit-sharing program. My father believed that success should lift everyone, I told them. Today, we're making that belief concrete. After the applause died down and the room cleared, Marin lingered behind. Have you seen the news? I had. Nolan had taken a plea deal, testifying against Vera in exchange for a reduced sentence. Sage had avoided jail time, but was working retail to pay off her debts. And Vera, the mastermind, would spend the next decade behind bars. The house sold yesterday, I said, gathering my papers. Final tie cut. You okay? I considered the question as we walked to my office. The past year had been a blur of rebuilding, not just the company but myself. Every morning, I'd walked past the security footage still saved on my computer, reminding myself that sometimes the people closest to you can be the biggest threats. I visited Mom's grave last week, I said instead of answering. First time since everything happened. Told her about Dad's letter, about how he protected me even after he was gone. And I finally understood something. Mom's depression wasn't weakness, like Vera tried to paint it. She saw things in people that others missed. Maybe that's why she struggled so much. My phone buzzed, a text from James Chun. The board meeting would start soon. But first, I had something to do. Come with me? We took the elevator to the lobby, where a crew was installing new lettering on the wall. The company's mission statement, written in elegant gold. Integrity is not what we do, but who we are. Below it, smaller but just as bright, in memory of Robert Delaney, who taught us that true legacy lives in our actions. He would have loved this, Marin said softly. Yeah. I touched the letters gently. But that's not what I wanted to show you. I led her to my car, drove through the city until we reached a familiar neighborhood. Pulled up in front of a small house with a for sale sign in the yard. Your old house. Marin frowned. I thought you'd never want to see it again. I bought it yesterday. I got out of the car, walked up the familiar path. Not to live in. For this. I handed her a folder. Plans for converting the house into a shelter for women escaping financial abuse. A place where they could learn business skills, rebuild their lives, find their strength. Dad protected me with evidence and security cameras, I explained. But not everyone has that. Some people just need a chance to stand on their own feet. Using your revenge to help others, Marin smiled. Your dad would be proud. It's not about revenge anymore. I looked at the house, where I'd once thought I was building a future with Nolan. It's about making something better from something broken. My phone buzzed again. Time for the board meeting. As we drove back, I thought about Dad's final letter, now framed in my office. About how he'd known I'd face hard choices, but trusted me to make the right ones. You know what's funny? I said as we pulled into the parking garage, a different spot than where Dad had parked that last day. Nolan and Vera thought Dad's legacy was the company, but it wasn't. No. It was learning how to stand up for what's right, even when it costs you everything. I smiled, thinking of the shelter plans, of the profit-sharing program, of all the changes ahead, and then building something better from the ashes. We stepped into the elevator, heading up to face whatever challenges waited next. But this time, I wasn't afraid. I knew exactly who I was and what I stood for. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying your enemies. It's building something they can never touch, never corrupt, never understand. Something that lasts.